She never expected to become a mother again at 77. But when Clara Bennett found a baby left on her porch during a spring storm, she made a choice that would change both their lives forever. Years later, that same boy's search for answers would uncover hidden connections, long-buried family secrets, and bring them face to face with someone whose influence stretched far beyond their small town. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The cardboard box on Clara Bennett's porch wasn't supposed to be there. At 77, with aching joints and a worn-out hip, Clara didn't get many deliveries anymore. Her small pension barely covered her essentials, let alone anything extra. The Willow Glen cottage on the outskirts of Ashridge, Vermont, had been her sanctuary for over 5 decades, aged but graceful, just like her, standing quietly against the harsh northeastern winters. Clara adjusted her faded lilac robe and peered through the mesh of the screen door. The spring rain had finally passed, leaving puddles on the gravel path that reflected the steel-gray sky. With a slow exhale, she pushed the door open and shuffled toward the unfamiliar package. Maybe it was meant for someone down the road, though neighbors in rural Ashridge weren't exactly next door. But as she drew closer, she heard it, a noise that made her freeze. A whimper, followed by a muffled cry. Clara's heart, dulled by decades of solitude, skipped a beat. Ignoring her body's protests, she moved as quickly as she could. With effort, Clara lowered herself onto her knees and carefully lifted the damp cardboard flaps. Inside, wrapped in a pale blue fleece blanket, lay a baby no older than a few days. His little fists waved in distress, eyes squinting from the sudden brightness. Good heavens, Clara breathed, her fingers trembling as she reached for him. A folded note, tucked inside the blanket, slipped into her lap. Cradling the baby with one arm, she unfolded the paper with the other. It read, "Please take care of him." "I can't. His name is Aiden." "I'm sorry." Clara looked up and down the desolate country road, but there was no one in sight. Only the soft rustle of breeze through the maple trees. The baby Aiden began to cry louder now, his whole body shaking with cold, hunger, or both. "Hush, sweetheart," Clara whispered, her voice dry from disuse. "Let's get you warm." She gathered him gently in her arms and returned to her weathered home. Her thoughts raced. She should call someone, the police, child welfare. Someone who understood how to handle abandoned infants. But as she sank into her creaky old armchair and felt the baby nestle into her chest, something inside her hesitated. Clara had known loss intimately. Her husband, Frank, had passed from cancer 16 years ago. Her only son, Daniel, had died in a car crash just a few years after that. Her daughter-in-law had eventually moved to the West Coast, taking Clara's only grandchild with her. What remained was silence and memories. "What do I do with you now?" she asked the baby boy, who blinked slowly, his tiny hand wrapping around her finger with surprising grip. The logical part of her knew what needed to happen: report the abandonment and let social services take over. But another part, long buried, spoke softly, insisting this little boy needed affection, safety, a place to belong. Things Clara still had to give. She told herself she'd call tomorrow. One night wouldn't hurt. Aiden needed food, warmth, and care right now. She dusted off her old emergency stash of powdered milk, mixed a bottle just right, and warmed it carefully. She improvised a diaper from a soft dish towel, wrapped him in one of her hand-knit blankets, and watched in awe as his eyelids slowly drifted shut. That night, Clara barely slept. Every hour, she rose to check on Aiden, marveling at the tiny curve of his fingers, the little sighs he made in his sleep, the delicate rise and fall of his chest. As morning sunlight filtered through her lace curtains, Clara felt something inside her shift. It was bold, maybe even unlawful, but it was the most certain she'd felt in years. "I'll take care of you, Aiden," she whispered into the soft crown of his head. "For as long as I can." Days became weeks. Each time Clara picked up the phone to call someone, she couldn't bring herself to dial. The clerk at Red Pine General Store assumed Aiden was Clara's great-grandson visiting from out of town, and Clara didn't correct her. She used her modest savings to buy formula, diapers, and second-hand baby clothes. Aiden flourished. His first gurgles, his curious eyes, his tiny hand grasping Clara's worn fingers brought life to a home that had known only echoes for so long. Deep down, Clara knew she couldn't keep him forever. Not at her age, not with her health. But she could give him a beginning. A safe one. The months passed, and with them came new rhythms. Clara took Aiden on morning strolls in a sun-faded stroller she'd rescued from a garage sale. In the afternoons, she read him poetry and fairy tales, her voice becoming lively again after years of silence. His first tooth, his first word, "Nana," said with certainty, brought joyful tears. His first steps across her faded living room rug were moments she filed away in her heart. When Aiden neared his first birthday, Clara received an unexpected letter. A cousin she barely remembered had passed away, leaving her a small inheritance. It wasn't much, but enough to ease her financial stress and give her time to think clearly about the future. She used part of the money to visit Evergrove Legal Associates in the nearby town of Norwich. She told them a story not far from the truth. Aiden was a child of distant relatives left in her care after their passing, with no one else to claim him. The young lawyer, Ms. Landry, was kind and discreet. With Clara's solid reputation as a retired schoolteacher and the evident bond between her and Aiden, they were able to begin the process of legal guardianship. By Aiden's second birthday, Clara Bennett was officially his legal guardian. She celebrated with a chocolate cupcake and a photograph of him grinning wide, frosting on his nose, starting the first page of an album she'd long since put away. It wasn't an easy life, but it was fuller than any she'd imagined at 77. As Aiden grew, so did his curiosity and energy. Clara's aging body struggled to keep pace, but she found ways to adapt. She transformed her vegetable patch into a little play area and enlisted the help of Emily Rosen, a teenage neighbor who adored Aiden and came by twice a week. When it was time for school, Clara faced new challenges. Most other parents were younger by decades, and the questions about Aiden's story became more frequent. She offered a gentle explanation to teachers and other parents. Aiden was her grandnephew, left in her care after tragedy. Most accepted it without pressing. To those who doubted her ability because of her age, Clara responded with unwavering resolve. "I may not run as fast," she told Aiden's first-grade teacher at Ashridge Elementary, "but I offer something just as valuable: steadiness, kindness, and unconditional love." What no one knew, what Clara kept locked inside herself, was that each night, she whispered the same quiet prayer: "Just let me have enough time. Time to see him grow. Time to make sure he's okay when I'm gone." Even with guardianship papers and years of shared memories, Clara lived with the awareness that one day Aiden would want the truth about the cardboard box, the note, and the mother who left him behind. By the time Aiden turned 12, Clara's prayers had been answered and tested. Her arthritis had worsened and her strength faded more quickly than before. But the real blow came from her doctor at Lakeview Community Clinic after a round of tests prompted by fatigue and shortness of breath. "Clara," said Dr. Chin, his voice kind but firm, "you have congestive heart failure. With medication and care, we can manage it. But you need to start thinking about Aiden's future without you." Clara listened quietly, hands folded in her lap. At 89, she had already lived longer than most expected. But she had a reason to keep going. Aiden. He was her motivation, her joy, the anchor that had pulled her back into life. Aiden had become a striking young teen, tall for his age, with messy dark hair that refused to stay in place and bright eyes that sparkled with wit and wonder. He was a natural with numbers and science, constantly tinkering with household objects to create small inventions or prototypes. His teachers called him a prodigy. Clara simply called him her miracle. Their relationship had shifted with time. The toddler who once gripped her skirts now helped her up steps and reminded her gently to take her pills. He even created a spreadsheet on an old laptop to track her medications, recording doses without making her feel frail. "Did you take your water pill this morning, Nana Clara?" he'd ask over breakfast, keeping his tone light. Clara never called herself his mother, though she had raised him from the start. There were truths she believed needed the right moment. And Aiden, growing older by the day, deserved to understand the complicated blend of love, loss, and sacrifice that had brought them together. That evening, as they prepared dinner, Aiden chopping carrots with laser focus while Clara supervised from her kitchen chair, she watched him closely. There was something in the way he held himself, something familiar she couldn't place. "Mrs. Gomez says I should apply to the summer science program at Hartwell High," Aiden mentioned, sliding the vegetables into the pot. "It's for kids starting high school early. I could earn credits before the semester starts." Clara beamed. "You absolutely should. You've got a mind meant for more than video games." Aiden grinned, the small gap from his recently lost front tooth giving him a playful look. "I'll still have time for gaming and taking care of you. I'm not totally helpless yet," Clara huffed. But they both knew those days were drawing nearer. Later that night, after Aiden had gone to bed, Clara retrieved a wooden box hidden beneath her bed. Inside were the only pieces of his past she still had: the worn blue blanket, the creased note, and a stack of local newspaper clippings from that rainy week over a decade ago. Despite years of searching, she had found no leads. No missing baby reports. No young woman coming forward. Just silence. Back then, Clara had found nothing in the local news. In the years since, she had continued the search online, sometimes even with Aiden's help under the pretense of building a family tree. But nothing ever surfaced. It was both comforting and sad. No one had reported him missing, no mother had tried to reclaim him. His beginnings were a mystery wrapped in silence. The summer science program proved to be a turning point. Aiden flourished, surrounded by like-minded peers, his enthusiasm sparking brighter each day. He came home raving about robotics, AI simulations, and engineering puzzles. Clara understood very little of the technical talk but soaked in his joy. It was during the program that Aiden met Dr. Everett Lawson, a guest lecturer and renowned innovator in the tech world. The man was confident, charming, and carried himself like someone used to getting results. He quickly took an interest in Aiden after seeing his design for an energy-efficient circuit model. "Your grandson is exceptional," Lawson said to Clara during an open house visit. Dressed in a tailored gray suit, he looked out of place among the cafeteria's folding chairs. "Grandnephew, actually," Clara replied automatically, then instantly regretted the correction. Something about Dr. Lawson's gaze made her uneasy. "Even more impressive," Lawson replied smoothly. "Has Aiden told you about the Orion Scholars Fellowship? It's a full academic grant through college for gifted students who need financial support." Clara's heart clenched slightly at the word need, though she couldn't argue with the truth. Her modest income had stretched thin as Aiden grew. She often lay awake at night wondering how she'd afford his higher education. Scholarships were their only hope, but none were guaranteed. 2 weeks later, the fellowship offer arrived. Clara's pride battled with suspicion. Why had someone like Dr. Lawson taken such a particular interest in Aiden? The offer included mentorships, access to labs, internships with top firms, and a direct pipeline to prestigious universities. It was everything Clara had wished for but hadn't dared believe possible. "I don't understand it," she admitted to her neighbor and closest friend, Viola, over tea. "He's smart, sure, but there are so many brilliant kids out there. Why Aiden?" Viola had shrugged, ever the pragmatist. "Sometimes the world sees a light and wants to nurture it. Don't question it. Just be grateful." Aiden, meanwhile, was thrilled. It was the kind of opportunity he'd only read about in magazines. He threw himself into every element of the program with eager intensity. For the first time, Clara saw a horizon for Aiden that stretched far beyond their quiet town. But with that promise came an unsettling realization she might not be there to see him reach it. As Aiden's 14th birthday approached, Clara knew it was time to stop delaying. The truth, the blanket, the note, the unanswered questions could no longer wait. He had to know who he was, even if the story was incomplete. On a brisk October evening, after a dinner of roast chicken and sweet potatoes, Aiden's favorite, Clara presented him with a small wrapped box. "This one's different from the others," she said quietly. "It holds your story. Or at least the beginning of it." Aiden opened the box and slowly unfolded the creased note and the soft, faded scrap of blanket. His brow furrowed as he reread the message 3 times. "You found me in a box? On your porch?" he asked, stunned. Clara nodded gently. "You were just a few days old. I didn't know who left you, but I couldn't turn you away." Aiden's eyes welled with emotion. "So we're not by blood," she said, reaching for his hand, "but in every way that matters, you are mine and I am yours." Aiden's eyes glistened with unspoken emotion. Was it sadness, anger, or something else entirely? Clara couldn't tell. He stared at the note for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you call the police?" Clara had expected these questions. She'd prepared answers in her mind for years. But now, sitting across from him, none of them felt quite right. "Because I was alone," she said softly, "until you arrived. And then suddenly, I wasn't. I told myself it was just for a night, then a week, just until I figured things out. But the longer you stayed, the more it felt like you were meant to be here." Aiden glanced down at the note again. "At least she gave me a name." Clara nodded. "Yes. She wanted you to be found, to be safe. That much is clear." He looked up slowly. "Have you ever tried to find her? Or my father?" Clara gave a small nod. "I've tried. I saved newspaper clippings, watched the news, searched online. There were no missing baby reports. No young mother looking for her son. Whoever she was, she disappeared." Aiden folded the note carefully, as if it were something fragile. When he looked up, there was a quiet resolve behind his eyes that Clara hadn't seen before. "Then I'll find her," he said with calm certainty. "I have to know where I come from." What had once seemed like a generous opportunity, a scholarship, a fellowship, a path forward, suddenly became something more. Aiden's personal mission was born. He began splitting his time between schoolwork and his search. Outwardly, nothing changed. He continued his studies at the Orion program, focused especially on mathematics and data systems. But in his private moments, he turned Clara's guest room into a miniature investigation center. He tacked maps of the region to the wall, red circles marking every hospital within a 60-mile radius. Another corner was filled with pinned newspaper articles and missing persons reports from 14 years ago. His laptop, always open, ran search queries and genealogy databases day and night. To him, it was more than curiosity. It was the equation of his life, and it needed solving. 3 DNA kits sent out, Aiden announced one evening over dinner, excitement flickering behind his glasses. Different companies. They each use unique markers, so I'm hoping for overlap. If I match with any relatives, even distant ones, it could be a lead. Clara offered a tired smile, pushing peas around her plate. Her appetite had waned lately, and the fatigue in her limbs had become harder to disguise. Have you mentioned this to Dr. Lawson? Aiden hesitated. Not exactly. There's something odd about him. I can't explain it, but he asks a lot of questions, especially about you. Medical history, family background. He even requested my academic records from when I was in elementary school. Clara blinked in disbelief. He what? There was a clause in the fellowship fine print about access to educational data. I didn't read it all closely at the time, Aiden admitted. But it's more than that. He seems unusually invested. Too much for just a mentor. Clara's fork paused midair, her instincts tingling. That's not something we should ignore. Clara felt a wave of unease ripple through her chest. She had always sensed a subtle sharpness behind Dr. Lawson's polished smile, something ambitious, perhaps even strategic. Maybe it's time to rethink this fellowship, she said slowly. Education is important, but not at the cost of your privacy. Aiden shook his head. The access it gives me is too valuable. And to be honest, I think he might know something. Lawson's company, Evertech Systems, runs a biometric security division. They maintain a partial DNA database for identification algorithms. One of my summer projects involves analyzing their code. Clara narrowed her eyes. Aiden, you're not planning to access personal data, are you? I'm not hacking anything, he said quickly. Just studying how the system works. You always told me knowledge is power. This could help me find the missing pieces. Clara couldn't argue with her own wisdom, but it didn't ease her concern. Aiden's obsession with his past was growing sharper, more focused. She feared what truths he might dig up and at what cost. Then spring arrived, and with it an unexpected lead. Aiden's DNA results were mostly vague, distant cousins scattered across the country, no direct matches. But during a routine medical checkup required by the fellowship, a detail caught the attending physician's attention. You have an uncommon blood protein variant, Aiden told Clara that afternoon, practically bouncing with excitement. It's not dangerous, just rare. Less than 0.5% of people have it. The doctor said it shows up most often in families from the Brookvale region. Brookvale was a town about 30 miles north of Ashridge, once a manufacturing hub, now largely forgotten. Clara had only been there a handful of times, and never had any connections there. It's not a lot to go on, Clara cautioned. But it's something, Aiden insisted. And when Lawson glanced at my test results, he flinched, like he recognized something in them. Clara's worry deepened. She trusted Aiden's intuition, but the more pieces that clicked together, the more it felt like they were circling something much bigger. Aiden, promise me you'll be careful, Clara said one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. Your mind's brilliant, but sometimes you leap before you look. He gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Always careful, Nana. I swear. But even as he spoke, Clara's body was betraying her. The dizziness was becoming more frequent, and climbing stairs had started to feel like hiking uphill. She tried to hide it, but her strength was waning. Then, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, while Aiden was at a robotics seminar, Clara collapsed in her backyard while picking herbs for dinner. Their neighbor, Viola, found her and immediately called an ambulance. By the time Aiden arrived at St. Emery's Medical Center, Clara was stabilized, but everything had changed. You need full-time care, the attending doctor told them bluntly. With your cardiac history and now a minor stroke, living alone is no longer safe. Aiden squared his shoulders. I'll take care of her. I'll reduce my hours. I'll work from home, whatever it takes. You're still a minor, the doctor said gently. There are legal limits, no matter your intentions. I turn 16 next month, Aiden cut in. I've managed her medications for years. I know every dosage, every symptom. I've kept logs. I'm not just some kid winging it. From the hospital bed, Clara reached for his hand. Aiden, honey, she said gently but firmly, your life, your future are meaningless if I lose you, he finished without hesitation. Before the doctor could respond, a presence filled the doorway. It was Dr. Everett Lawson, dressed immaculately as always, though slightly damp from the rain outside. He carried himself with controlled urgency, his eyes flicking from Aiden to Clara. I came as soon as I heard, he said, voice smooth but measured. When Aiden missed our coding session, I contacted your neighbor. She filled me in. Aiden stepped instinctively in front of Clara, protectively. Thank you, Dr. Lawson, but this is a personal matter. And family matters deeply to me, Lawson replied, walking closer. Which is why I'd like to make an offer. My company maintains a private medical residence for senior employees and family members, the Haven at Evertech. It's quiet, fully staffed, and equipped for long-term cardiac care. I'd like to extend that care to both of you. Aiden and Clara exchanged wary glances. The offer felt sincere, but also strategic. Why? Clara asked, her voice weak but sharp. Why go to all this trouble? Lawson hesitated for the first time, a flicker of something unreadable passed over his face. Let's just say I have a personal interest in Aiden's well-being. He's more than a gifted student. He's someone I believe in. That's not a full answer, Aiden said, narrowing his eyes. You saw something in my medical records. Something familiar. What was it? The silence that followed was heavy. You're sharper than I anticipated, Lawson said at last with a half-smile. You're right, there's more to my interest than just mentorship. But I prefer to explain when everyone is in a better state. Clara's intuition kicked in like an old engine. This is about Aiden's biological family, isn't it? She asked. You know something. Lawson took a breath and looked down briefly. Not here. Not yet. But yes. I believe I may have answers about where Aiden came from. Lawson's admission hung in the air like a storm cloud. Then why the fellowship? Aiden pressed. Why not just tell us? I will, Lawson said carefully. If you accept care at the Haven, I promise full disclosure once Clara is settled and stable. I won't keep anything from you. Aiden's mind was racing. The offer sounded both generous and calculated. What if Lawson held the key to his entire past? What if accepting meant answers? But at what cost? We need time to decide, Aiden said firmly, glancing at Clara. Of course, Lawson replied, placing a business card on the bedside table. But don't wait too long. Some answers come with expiration dates. After he left, Aiden sat beside Clara, his expression conflicted. He knows something, maybe everything. Clara nodded slowly. And he's leveraging that knowledge to maneuver us. Or maybe, Aiden said quietly, he really wants to help. Clara gave him a knowing look. Since when are you so trusting? Aiden smiled faintly. Since a kind old woman found me in a cardboard box and gave me a home. That night, while Clara dozed in her hospital bed, her breathing shallow but steady, Aiden sat beside her with his laptop. The hospital Wi-Fi was slow, but enough. Driven by instinct and desperation, he accessed the employee portal of Evertech Systems. The firewalls were strangely simple. For someone of his skill level, it was almost as if the path had been cleared intentionally. And then he found it. James Everett Lawson had a younger sister. Her name was Eleanor Lawson, though her file ended abruptly 17 years ago. Her last known address? Brookvale, the same town connected to Aiden's rare blood marker. There were no employment records, no medical files past that date. Just silence. Aiden leaned back slowly, blood pulsing in his ears. If Eleanor was his mother, that would make Dr. Lawson his uncle. He sat in the chair beside Clara's bed, hands shaking. What game had Lawson been playing all this time? But before Aiden could process further, the monitor beside Clara began to beep erratically. Her chest rose unevenly, and the machine shrieked its alarm. Cardiac event! A nurse shouted as staff poured in. Get the crash cart! Aiden was pushed back into the hallway, helpless, as chaos erupted behind the closing doors. Aiden stood frozen, fists clenched at his sides, as nurses fought to stabilize the only person who had ever truly loved him. In that moment, his investigation, his past, his DNA, all of it became irrelevant. He fumbled for his phone and, with trembling fingers, called the number on the business card. "Dr. Lawson," he said when the line connected. "We need help. Now." Within hours, Clara was transferred to a private suite in the Haven at Evertech, a facility as pristine and futuristic as a space station. Monitors hummed quietly, and a soft light bathed the room in calm. Clara, weak but conscious, lay resting in a high-tech hospital bed with oxygen tubes gently looped behind her ears. Aiden hadn't left her side. "You should go home," Clara whispered one morning. "Rest properly. Eat something real." "I'm not going anywhere," Aiden replied. "Home is wherever you are." He meant it. Even surrounded by state-of-the-art care, nothing mattered more to him than her presence. The door creaked open. Lawson entered slowly, his usual certainty now laced with something new: hesitation. "The doctors say she's stable," he said, keeping his voice low. Aiden stood, crossing his arms. "No more delays. It's time. I want answers." Lawson nodded, pulling up a chair across from them. "You're right. It's time." He took a breath. "My sister, Eleanor, brilliant, troubled, unpredictable. Our family has a long history of mental illness, though no one wanted to talk about it. When she became pregnant at 19, it triggered a severe breakdown." Clara's hand gripped Aiden's. "I was trying to build Evertech at the time," Lawson continued. "I failed her. I was too caught up in work. She ran away. I tracked her as far as Brookvale, but by then she had vanished. Years passed. I thought she'd taken the child with her. But she didn't," Aiden said softly. "She left me. On Clara's porch." Lawson nodded. "It took years, but I eventually found a letter she had written before her death 6 years ago. In it, she confessed to abandoning her baby. She left him on the porch of someone she trusted from her childhood." Clara blinked. "Eleanor Lawson," she whispered. "She was one of my students." Clara's voice trembled. "Eleanor Lawson. I remember her now. Quiet. Exceptionally bright. She struggled socially, but in math, she was years ahead." Lawson nodded slowly. "She changed her name after high school. Tried to escape our family name and the weight that came with it. But in that letter, she mentioned you, Clara, how you were the only teacher who showed her patience and kindness when her world was falling apart. That's why she chose your porch." Tears filled Clara's eyes. "All these years, I never knew. I just thought someone had made a desperate choice." Lawson's voice softened. "She made the only choice she could in that moment. And she made the right one." Aiden sat still, absorbing every word. "So why the scholarship, the mentorship, the secrecy?" Lawson sighed. "Because I didn't know it was you at first. When I found the letter, I started searching. Then I saw your name pop up in guardianship filings. The timing matched. The child's name matched. I watched Aiden compete at a science expo, and I just knew. I had to be sure." "You should have told us," Aiden said, standing. "You should have come to our door instead of hiding behind foundations and fellowships." "Would you have believed me?" Lawson asked gently. "Would Clara have trusted me?" "I needed to know you were safe first. That you were loved." Clara sat upright, her strength returning with every word. "You were trying to protect him. I can see that now." Lawson turned to her, sincerity in his voice. "And I want to be in his life. Not as a benefactor. As family." Aiden looked between the two of them. "Family doesn't just happen because of blood." "I know," Lawson said. "But it's a start." Clara reached out and took his hand. "Family is also about showing up. And you showed up when we needed you most." Lawson's voice cracked. "Let me keep showing up. Let me help." Aiden took a deep breath. "I have one condition." Lawson raised an eyebrow. "Clara stays with me. Wherever I go, whatever happens next, she stays." Lawson nodded without pause. "Of course. I would never separate you. She's part of this family, too. In fact," Lawson continued, "I've already started renovations on the east wing of my estate. It's being equipped with a private medical suite for Clara and a research lab for you, Aiden. You'll both have everything you need." Clara blinked in disbelief. "You don't have to do all this." "I want to," Lawson said simply. "For my sister's son. For the woman who raised him into the person he is." 3 months later, Clara sat beneath a white awning in a sun-drenched garden. Her health had stabilized, and the rhythm of daily care brought her comfort she hadn't known in years. In the distance, she could see Aiden and Lawson working side by side in the glass-walled lab, their silhouettes animated by curiosity and drive. It hadn't been easy. Aiden had needed time to truly trust Lawson, and Clara still sometimes felt overwhelmed by the change. But there was peace now, a deep peace that came from knowing Aiden's future was secure. He would have every opportunity the world could offer, and she would be there to witness it. Aiden jogged toward Clara across the sunlit lawn, waving a stack of papers in his hand. At 16, he stood tall and confident, eyes bright with purpose. "Gran," he called, breathless with excitement. "We've isolated the gene marker linked to your heart condition, and Uncle James has the same one. The research team thinks we're close to a therapy that could slow it down." Clara smiled up at him, her eyes shimmering. "You always were meant to change the world, Aiden. I knew it from the moment I saw you." He knelt beside her chair, laying the papers in her lap, then paused. "There's something else." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. "Uncle James gave me something yesterday. It's one of Eleanor's journals." He hesitated. "She wrote about you, Gran. She used to walk by the cottage and watch you tend the flowers. She said the way you smiled at neighbors even when you thought no one saw convinced her you were the right person. She chose you." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "She gave me the greatest gift of my life." Aiden took her hand. "We saved each other, didn't we?" As golden leaves swirled in the breeze around them, Clara nodded. A baby in a cardboard box. A lonely widow with a weary heart. A powerful man haunted by family ghosts. And a mother who made a quiet, final act of hope. Their stories had collided in the most unexpected way. But through loss, they found family. Through mystery, they found truth. And through love, they built something stronger than blood. "Yes, Aiden," Clara whispered, squeezing his hand. "We did save each other. And we always will."